Listen, it's 1 year since Ashling Murphy's murder. We saw scenes in the news just a minute ago about the vigil being held in her local town, village. Desperately sad.
Yeah, look, I think, the death of Ashling Murphy this time last year was really seen as a kind of a watershed moment in Irish society. And there was a lot of discussion when you cast your mind back, like at the time, to women's safety. How safe do people, men and women, feel in this country, and what can be done to stop the issues around gender-based violence. And we've had the kind of chorus of calls from government calling for change. We've had a lot of sort of community groups, people, coming together, protesting, rallying and calling for some form of action. But when you actually look at what has changed, or has there been any change in the last 12 months, we've had this third national strategy that was announced. It was about 360 odd million. And it was basically going to see money, extra additional funds pumped into the likes of improving support services for victims of gender-based violence, extra services and accommodation provided at refuges as well. But that's going to be something that I suppose is implemented, over a long-term period. We've been promised as well from Justice Minister Helen McEntee that from next January there'll also be this kind of statutory agency against domestic and gender-based violence as well. And that's one element. That's of January to come into place, from 2024. But the reality of all this, Tommy, is like you can look and talk about all these plans and committees and strategies that are going to be implemented. Like on Lunchtime Live in the show, for instance, this week, we just talked to people, to women, about how safe do you feel. And the reality of this is that women have still stopped going for runs in the dark, after 4 o'clock in the afternoon because, they're fearful for their safety. I spoke to one lady on the show this week who actually stopped running in the Phoenix Park and, set up a gym membership to bring her up to the spring months of late March. I talked to people this week who still, when they're walking home at night after work, this is only at 6 and 7 in the evening, walking with a bunch of keys in their hand. And I know myself, like, it's only when you stop and you think of the kind of things that you do or the measures. Like, I'd often, if I ever felt in a bit of an uncomfortable situation or saw a group of people up ahead of me and didn't feel comfortable, I know myself, I've often kind of pretended I was nearly on the phone or said, oh yeah, I can see you up ahead, I'll be there, be back home in 2 minutes. And they're the kind of things that when you look at this, and on the face of it, as I said, yes, we've strategies, we've all this kind of stuff, but has actually anything really changed?
Well, obviously not.
But it's dealing with, like, either way, Bruna Fonseca was murdered in her own apartment by her ex-boyfriend. There's nothing that she can do in that situation. There's an anger inside this world towards people who are spurned. Jennifer Poole last year, she was murdered by her partner who'd also been in jail before. He said he was on holiday and he'd been in jail, and he'd been given a sentence for what he'd done to a previous partner. We've got Natalie McNally, who was murdered 15 weeks pregnant in Lurgan over Christmas. I know we sit there and we're like, what can we do when we put money into this? But there's an anger there. And, if a woman's backed into a corner and there's a fella there and he wants to hurt you, he's going to hurt you. And
it's very hard.
Something about that.
Yeah, it's very hard to see the tangible change. And like, you've talked about some of the people there. Like, despite all of the discourse, the discussion, the conversation that we had on this programme and many others, over the last 12 months. Last year, 2022, was the worst year in a decade for violence against women. Like, there were 12 women in total who died in instances like this. And that is the reality of it. Yeah. So it's very hard to, I think, qualify what is tangible change. But what I do know, as I said, from just talking to people this week, is that really a lot of those kind of additional safety measures that we do, that you shouldn't have to do, but that you do, they still take place, in the last 12 months.
What boggles, is exactly, there was a huge, I think, outcry and conversation had after Ashling's murder last year. And then to see that last year was the worst year in a decade. With 11 or 12 murders, it's shocking. And I think it's just insane with the government, Helen McEntee, saying there's a zero tolerance. But
what is that?
What is that? What is it? And if they're not coming down hard and making a statement with things that are happening, I just don't think see where things are going to stop.
And it's increased violence. Like, we were looking at assault figures last year. It's not good. Like, it's what is going on in this world.
People can't feel safe in their own country. Like, it's frightening. It really is.
It's just with Ashling friends and family. Like, this is
every
day. Every day is a life sentence for them either way. So
your
that's
heart
just
would
what it is.
absolutely break for all of the family and friends today and colleagues. And as I said, I know the anniversary mass is vigil as well taking place today, and we are certainly thinking of.
Absolutely.